Hello there, everyone. My name is Rachel Wong, and welcome to my online recording of my senior seminar capstone project. Thank you for participating in my online recorded art. Well, thank you for participating in my online audience. Although this is a recording, thank you for watching. Due to circumstances surrounding our current climate and transitioning from school to home, there have been some edits to this presentation. I will not be showing any of the websites or videos that I intended to view during my presentation. Instead, there are links in each slide, and I will encourage you to go look at them after this presentation on your own time because I believe they are worth watching. Okay, I do have my notes over here on my left side, and my presentation's on my right, so I will be looking back and forth while looking back at you, the audience. So please bear with. Let us get started. Beginning with a generalization of anti-branding so that we can all be on the same page. From my collective research and understanding of anti-branding, I have come to define it as a marketing strategy that works to reveal injustice or dissatisfaction in corporations and social and economic movements. Anti-branding is the result of large corporations becoming too big with unchecked or unchallenged power. To combat this, rioting consumers take it on themselves to withdraw support from these corporations and educate others on this deception. Anti-branding relies a lot, I'm a little bit under the weather, so please bear with. Anti-branding relies a lot on its large number of followers and supporters. The larger their numbers are, the more lucrative advertising and news spreading becomes, ensuring the successful impact of the anti-branding's message and trend longevity. Usually, there are two messages attached to the anti-branding ads and campaigns. That is, brand/corporation's ugly truths and the message of other consumers to resist purchasing, consuming, supporting, and endorsing the brand till the issues are resolved or inevitably. Anti-branding is normally more focused on getting the word out than forcing consumers' mindsets to change, but making the consumer knowledgeable of these issues is also a beneficial outcome. The least bit of good that can come from anti-branding is making consumers aware and conscious of their purchases, corporations manufacturing, and policies that make them aware of who they are as a brand consumer and what power they have over endorsing brand purchases. Anti-branding is predominantly a visual media, or a combination of physical action and imagery, but that does not confine anti-branding's reception or prevent it from being used in an audible and verbal strategies. I believe the open approach to public visual advertisement I will restart. I believe the open approach to public visual advertisement with the unsettling shock of the message is a good balance for the general audience to engage with anti-branding productively without overthreatening the audience's senses or space. I don't believe anti-branding is intended to hurt or shame audiences or consumers. Its fight is with the dominating corporations, but I do believe anti-branding should remain but I do believe that anti-branding should remain conscious of its influence over others as well. Excuse me. Thank you. With most anti-branding advertising, the media, with most anti-branding advertising and media available online in digital form, the accessibility to this information is abundant. The concern here is that both large corporations and consumers occupy this space and claim to know each other's truth and claim to know their own truths. There are no exact means of managing all of this information. And also, I would like to add my reasoning for this project. Outside of being a communications major, I'm interested in how people identify, communicate, and behave towards social influence. I asked myself, how can I better understand and manage myself and my interaction with others through different means of communication? I wish to know how to I wish to know how to advertise myself in both generally and during specific occasions, and skillfully construct an identity I feel honestly represents me and my values. I also hope that while I am mastering these skills, that I can help others do the same, to help communities build and share their brands and build trusting relationships worldwide. So the work I put into this project is that I've created 3 designed ads inspired and based upon current anti-branding movements. My first one relating to Nike's sweatshop allegations that were predominant in the early 2000s. My second one will be about animal testing and animal cruelty, mainly relating to cosmetic brands. And my third one will be about revising the anti-brand movement for this decade. So, first item on my list is sweatshops and forced labor. Above, there are other corporations who use sweatshops and have different locations and factories outside of the US with sweatshops. Following the bullet points, and in the background it is straight from the Nike website of locations of where Nike factories are. Nike sweatshop and forced labor allegations started in the 1970s when Nike factories in East Asian countries were beginning to improve their economy's development, along with Nike's surge for factories in East Asia. So mainly over here is where they started, in like Indonesia, Vietnam, Taiwan, and China, where these factories were located. Throughout the 90s and late 2000s, Nike has dismissed these claims. In 2001, the Nike director Todd McKinn had stated in an interview that Nike did not own these factories and that the company was not in control of their inner workings or duties inside. In 2004, over 40 universities in the US began student-led protests against Nike, began endorsing sweat-free labor campaigns across schools and sporting teams. Jim Kennedy became one of the many faces against Nike and the sweatshop-affiliated corporations. He was a soccer coach at the time at 1998 at St. John's University when the school signed a $3.5 million deal with Nike. Kennedy resigned and continued research in Nike's sweatshop scandal by traveling to Indonesia and living as a Nike factory worker, living off of $1.25 a day in harsh labor working conditions. He started the team global sensation, Team Sweat, a team designed to track Nike's manufacturing and work policies, and he continues to work and write as an activist today. Nike did create an NGO called Global Alliance Workers and Communities as a result of these allegations. It did release reports of current corporate plans and conditions, but it received backlash in 2001, where the reports failed to include recent events such as strikes, worker terminations, factory terminations, lack of collective bargaining, and lack of collective bargaining in Indonesian factories. In 2016, Workers' Rights Consortium and the Fair Labor Association had done reports on factory complexes in East Asia manufacturing Nike merchandise, and have done a great deal of investigating and revealing truth about other sweatshop benefiting factories and corporations. At the bottom, there's been a recent article from the Washington Post dating back in February 2020 about a recent report on a Nike factory in Uyghur, China. It is a quick read, and I encourage you to look at it as Nike is still benefiting from sweatshops today. Here is another slide of two links relating to the Nike website, where they establish these claims and that their factories and work status. This is available for the public, and you can go see it for yourself here. Here they share a video about how happy these workers are in these factories, the benefits that they receive, the statistics that they have. And also they use these statistics, these same facts and statistics are used in allegations against Nike, but they use them in a positive way that is in light, encouraging tone. I strongly encourage you to follow these websites. The first one relates to the map in the background of slide below. The slide above, the last slide, is the first link with the map of Nike factory locations and other sweatshops corporations. And the second one will take you to the Nike website, where it will share this video over here. It is, needless to say, a little jarring to see, knowing this information, so I will highly encourage you watch this on your own time. And here is my first attempt. Well, not my first attempt. Here's my first design of anti-branding for Nike. Many Nike designs that I've seen have used their Nike swoosh as either like a violent weapon or in some pungent red, very vibrant, and I wanted to emulate that using similar colors and just the adversity of bright red and the contrast of dark, thick lines, creating this sense of like unsafety. And during my read, it is mostly children, immigrants, migrant workers, and women who work in these factories. So I drew up a child because in most sweatshops they endorse child labor. and Nike is no stranger to that. So a child at a sewing machine with a master figure holding the Nike symbol and the plain play of Nike's logo phrase, "Just do it," I put "just stopped." The other logos like that other people have used, such as Nike just quit, or Nike just don't do it, or other short phrases playing on Nike's own advertisement. And I believe this portrays like a strong, threatening tone that will instantly get viewers like attracted to the sign and wonder what's that about. Okay, on to the next one. Oh, wait, before we do, you may be asking yourself, how do I combat this as a consumer? And the answer is switching to fair trade companies or small local businesses. What fair trading is, if you're a bit confused of what that really means, is trading between companies in developed countries and producers in developing countries. The system and relationship ensures fair trade and treatment of company, supplier, and consumer. Excuse me. Fair trade organizations support increased wages for production workers, social and economical benefits, and safe workplace and environmental standards. It is also important to pay attention to when you're buying items marked fair trade. Over here is the international logo, whereas others down here could only be recognizable as fair trade in certain provinces and companies, such as only fair trade in regards to Scotland or in regards to Poland or Italy. And if they don't match up with Americans' values of fair trade, you may have to look into that if they're not the same, or if they do not align with you. Okay. Here are also some fair trade sites that I will not be sharing, but you are free to look at after the presentation. Now on to the next item. Here's animal testing. Again, above, there are more companies, brands, and corporations that do continue to do animal testing, but for the sake of space above, I put one for each alphabetical English alphabetical letter, so A through Z, and I thought that was pretty interesting to see how many common brands we use today. Some of them that I do like, but do not agree with, and I wish for you to see the same. Okay. Also, I felt it was appropriate to use animal testing photos, but for the sake of whoever views or shares this presentation, I did not include animal cruelty photos, but I do encourage you to look that up on your own time. Instead, I will explain these photos later. The term vivisection is the cutting open of animal and test. The term vivisection is for cutting open and testing living things, such as animals, mainly animals, while they are still alive. Most vivisection is in animal testing. Rarely do animals get tested when they are deceased or dead. For these corporations and animal testing for our food and cosmetics and other brands and what we do. Okay. Tests include forcing and ingestion of toxins, organ organ needle injections. This also includes in the brain, in eyeballs, in their genitals, and directly into their stomachs and intestines. More is dermal, epidermal, not the epidermis, your skin, applying irritants and removing hair, like all hair, their eyebrows, and for like animals who have like furred hair, they're completely shaved off with razors and like burned off with chemicals, their hair. They're given radiation treatments. They surgically remove their organs and use deliberate harm. And lastly, they subjugate animals to fighting each other and creating stressful situations, including anxiety and depression, and to manage their hormones. All animals are on the table, and most animals are raised in labs, where they will never live more than a year. And some animals come from discarded livestock ranches and farms because of surplus, or because the animals are unfit for like the meat industry or for meat packaging, or for the livestock is so sick and ill that it can only be used for animal testing, and it lives a very short life. Some animal testing subjects even come from discarded pet shelters, especially when there's like surplus of pets. They often get donated to animal testing. A lot of these chemicals they test on animals and put in these products are really unnecessary. They are just made to be activating agents or preservatives in formulas, but if it is worth testing on another living thing, then you shouldn't feel safe using it in the first place. Excuse me. So these images in the background, they are from a PSA Lush produced in 2012, during which there was a live performance piece in one of their locations in London, where an activist went through a simulated test of similar animal testing for cosmetics and other animal testing. This attracted viewers on the street to see the reality of animal testing and law securing animal rights. For them, it was also a way to get viewers to sign a petition to ensure these laws. After several hours, the activist body was symbolically thrown away with street-side waste, as all animal subjects are. Yes. Excuse me. If you hear a buzzing noise, I do have neighbors mowing the lawn. Excuse me. Okay. Following animal testing, how can we shop cruelty-free? There are 3 widely recognized cruelty-free organization logos. The first one, over here, is PETA's logo, Beauty Without Bunnies. The second one is the Leapin' Bunny Program logo. It is constructed with 8 national animal protection groups. And together they form the Coalition of Consumer Information on Cosmetics. And it is a website where they team up with other cruelty-free organizations, so it makes shopping cruelty-free easier. And the last one is Choose Cruelty-Free, or CCF. It is Australian independent nonprofit. And don't mistake cruelty-free policies for vegan or vegetarian ones. Products can naturally be sourced, but still be tested on animals and made with animal harvested products, like beeswax, animal fat, and bat guano, and vice versa. So a product can be cruelty-free but not vegan, and a product can be vegan but not cruelty-free. Below are also some renowned vegan and vegetarian logos to follow. So in the same case with the slides of being fair trade, please look at the logos when shopping for brands and double check if they are certified cruelty-free, certified vegan, or certified vegetarian. Because even some small local businesses or small corporations will just put on a logo saying that it is what it is without really checking the ingredients. Okay. And now my second design here, I mainly had this idea of people either in a train station or underground subway, and that this advertisement can be posted on a wall there with a bunch of information, but not requiring people to read it all in one go and just on one side. I just playing off of, again, the color scheme and the dire feeling and color and urgency of, and deep poignant message of am I that ugly? Again, I have seen other designs this way of bunnies in makeup, or trapped bunnies being forced with a mascara, or forced on with the lipstick. Bunnies are mainly used for cosmetics, and it is just an approachable way for people to see animal testing and reconsider their consumer choices without being too forcible or too violently shocking. And imagine if this were run in a train station, people would be waiting for their train and take time to read all of the tiny brand names in the background. Of course, some are covered by the lipstick and bunny, but it would encourage them to go look at their own favorite brands and say, oh, I wonder if mine's cruelty-free or not, because usually if it doesn't say that's cruelty-free, it means that they do use animal testing. And then at the very bottom, I put "and you," just for them, a subtle nod. I don't want it to be too aggressive, but I want them to consider oh, maybe I should rethink my consumer choices. And if they totally agree with and invest in reading about cruelty-free and animal testing. Okay, and for the last part. And for this last project, it was I used it as a way to touch upon everything that I've gathered from my anti-branding search, and as a final exercise of my design's intuition. I've created an ad to revamp the anti-branding movement for current and upcoming decade. So for 2020 on to 2030 or so on in the future. Before I introduce my last piece, I will like to cover what recent anti-branding has occurred in our generation, and to talk about consumer activism. Consumer activism has been a staple in America for some time, to the Boston Tea Party raid against absurd taxation, to the 2016 presidential election of Donald Trump and his family name affiliation boycott of #GrabYourWallet, It was a nod to his comment of grabbing women's pussies, and for consumers to recede from Trump's branding, or anything affiliated or associated with Trump's brand. So with Nordstrom, with Trump Tower, with everything related to Trump and his family. The anti-branding movement may have reached its peak in the 90s with the recurrence of internet and the sharing of anti-branding that way. And some may even say that anti-branding has died off. But I believe that anti-branding strategy has just integrated into everyday advertising, marketing, art, and free speech. Anti-branding existed probably before the word brand existed, because it deals with our own personal identities and how we relate to others, creating communal and cultural identity together. That may be why anti-branding is so popular in the United States, since the building of this country has faced unique character building and cultural identity, creating an American brand as we know it today. Excuse me. And throughout this project, I have asked myself, what does an ad or a brand do? Why is a design meaningful? Why is a design a meaningful way to convey a message? I remember in my design class, in my college years, that the rudimentary elements of making design are color, shapes, and text. And with my past 2 designs, I have wanted to replicate the cruel injustices of these corporations and make the viewer reconsider themselves as a consumer in a simple, straightforward way. But with this last piece, I want to convey a positive and progressive message to a non-conforming and consumer-conscious crowd about identity branding without creating a brand. I don't want to create a brand to replace or fill the corporation hole left in people. I want others to see themselves as more than a walking brand or endorser, so that corporations can extinguish themselves and just become people that you can trust. Okay. Some examples you may have remembered or heard of recently in the past few years. Just last summer, Doritos released a commercial without any logos, just red and blue imagery, starting off by saying, "The following is a paid message with chips so iconic, we don't need to name them." It is an iconic culmination of design and advertising energy without the use of ads or brands or brand name dropping, proving that the future of brand and corporation recognition does not need to have loud or glamorous branding. To have a surmountable following. I like how this ad was mostly people doing things that they would with the product, not treating people as advertisement for Doritos, but having normal people and Doritos people sell the idea of what Doritos is. People already know Doritos, but this is a way of celebrating Doritos people. And what else they have already, it is a way of selling like Doritos people, and what else they are already great at, just eating Doritos. There's also some anti-branding stores, like the Italian-based This Is a Logo store and merchandise, and Anti in South Korea that combats young age popular brands like Supreme. I see these brands as replacing their competitors with subtle impact catering to a demographic that likes controversy of branding rather than the idea of being brandless. So it is anti-branding, but it is also becoming its own mini corporation of creating another brand. And I just added BoJack Horseman because in this episode of Your Secretariat, it's just appealing to a way of like advertising who you are and your identity without like revealing or forcing like the brand down your throat. It is for you to discover your own identity and to relate to the brand. Okay, so here is my final design for encouraging the anti-brand movement for 2020 and for the future. In this project, I really started with looking up anti-branding, and most of it was just simple, bold, black text, just saying like no, or anti-brand, or normal logos, or this is my brand, or stuff like that. And I feel like all this is very minimalist and, again, very in your face with aggressive anti-branding, but less so because what is the brand? It is no brand. And with this, I wanted to send a more positive message. So to start off, I did start off with television static, creating the word no as a subtle nod to anti-branding of the past, but I inserted more vibrant colors and imagery with landscapes, because even a place can be a brand, like Miami Beach, New Orleans, just anywhere, Hong Kong, India, Chile, and all across the world. Like a country can be a brand, a city can be a brand, and your home is a brand. Your home has many brands inside. So I came to the combining of brand and identity with place and people, and also like the idea of a brand just like overtakes the product or imagery. So like that's why the insert your name here and the no static takes up most of the space and almost hides the imagery behind. And I used 3 different places, one tropical, one very natural, and one city urbanscape, for like to establish like different worlds and the different ideas of branding, which are either different or similar depending on who you talk to. And then the last one being a human figure or human face, and just your profile self can be a brand and is a brand for yourself, and advertising yourself to other people, creating new relationships, and trying to understand one another through similarities, like, oh, what makeup does she use, or like what clothes does he wear, and stuff like that. And I feel like this is a friendly, more, I don't want to say playful, but I do want to say open and welcome way to for others to reconsider like who they are as a brand and what they believe in, what they want to represent, what they agree with, what they don't agree with, and how to better communicate in an honest way of finding other people and finding their own brand, which is brandless. To find the brand, to discover that they have no brand. Okay. And here we go. All right. My overall experience with this project has been a great balance of research and skill to introduce me into a future of design work. I expected to gain a well-rounded knowledge, a real well-rounded knowledge and experience before applying myself to any possible internship or job, because I have always intended to work with in some creative field that dealt with human storytelling and expression. Although I wish I could have spent more time acquiring design experience, I am glad to have had the opportunity to work on this project, on this project, like on a project like this, to get started on teaching myself and learning how to design in my way. I'm thankful for the time and learning experience I had here at Gordon and learning who I am as a communicator. Thank you for joining me in this presentation. Again, check out some of the website links I had in this slideshow. Some of them are videos, some of them are just websites for you to explore and interact with. I encourage you to visit them all and go ahead and discover who you are as a brand if you haven't already. Bye. Thank you again.